We on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot, season number 4, episode number 46, 46 defense style. Yeah, man, the weekend is here. First and foremost, man, I appreciate the check-in. If it's your first time listening, we on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot. We provide high-fire takes and analysis across the sporting landscape. And if you're OG of the show, I appreciate the check-in. And yeah, man, we're finally here at the weekend, man. I hope you guys had a nice and productive week. But it's time for most to let our hair down during the weekend, man. We got a lot of things shaking, a lot of things shook over the week as well. And, man, last night we had the NFL draft. It's always a lovely time, man, the NFL draft for me, man. I'm just a draft nerd, man, just evaluations, mock drafts, checking out just all the work out there, man, just seeing, how people perceive the draft going into it. But it's nothing like Thursday night in prime time for the National Football League. Thought it was one of the best decisions that the NFL did, man, moving the first round of the NFL draft into prime time, trying to steal some of the ratings from the NBA, man, and woo, boy, as one may have predicted, we had Cam Ward go number 1 in the NFL draft, man, to the Tennessee Titans. Had a few moves, man. Looks like Travis Hunter's going back down to Florida, where he's originally from. But the Jacksonville Jaguars, as we had a trade during the first part of the first round. Then we had the whole drama. It's always a player every single time in the NFL draft. Why didn't he get drafted? And this year's version of that is Shedeur Sanders. As Shedeur Sanders didn't get drafted last night, looks like he's probably going to get drafted sometime during the second round, man. And the same teams that pretty much needed a quarterback will need a quarterback here in this second round. Outside of the New York Giants, as they, traded back into the first round and got Jackson Dart. We're going to get into the draft and just my thoughts of what we saw. And shout out to my Chicago Bears, man. Got the number 10 pick. Went ahead and picked Colston Loveland, tight end out of the University of Michigan. Got to give my man Isalim, Mr. Taylor Street from the Weekly Dog Sports Betting Podcast, man. It's kudos, man. Me and him was going back and forth on him and Tyler Warren for the Bears, but looks like he got it right on that one. And so we'll see what the Bears do moving forward, but we're going to get into that. As I mentioned as well, man, we got the NBA playoffs jumping off, man, in full bloom as the weekend comes upon us. Man, it looks like one team is pretty much got a foot out the door, and that's the Memphis Grizzlies, losing that huge lead, man, to the Oklahoma City Thunder last night. My man Ja Morant, took a big-time fall, big-time injury. He's already been scratched for game number 4. That pretty much kind of puts a stake into the whole season of the Memphis Grizzlies. This is a team about a month or so ago moved on from Taylor Jenkins, the head coach. And I thought at that time when they did that, they waved the white flag on the season, folks. And here we are with that. And so I'm going to break down, obviously, the other matchups, man. A big-time win, man, for the Los Angeles Clippers against the Denver Nuggets. They up 2-1. The Knicks, they was able to get that right against the Detroit Pistons in Detroit in a nice, tight slugfest type of game. That was a good little watch. Like most, I was flipping back and forth between the NFL draft and these NBA playoffs, man. Y'all killing me out here, man, but it was all love. Then we had the whole situation, and I'm saying the whole situation, and it's something that I normally don't get into on We on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot. As one would say, man, folks, personal business. But can't escape this one, man. As I know all have not been under a rock, knows the whole situation with Shannon Sharpe and these latest allegations with Shannon Sharpe. Just his relationship with a 19-year-old young lady, and just that whole thing, man. And Shannon Sharpe releasing, his statements. Has been audio released out, which I've actually heard, by the way. Most of you guys probably have heard a little bit of it as well. And that's just a whole thing, man. And Shannon Sharpe, just a giant out here in the media world, moved on from Undisputed, with Skip Bayless. Seems like Skip out here, man, hurting out here, man. But, I ain't had no issues with Skip Bayless, but, man, Skip out here hurting right now. But Shannon Sharpe, he's been a shining star, man, since he's left Undisputed. got the nightcap situation going on, got Club Shay Shay going on, got the ESPN spot. But looks like he's going to be away from ESPN for a period of time. As for me, I knew what time it was on that. ESPN, I mean, they've had their whole situations with certain allegations and so forth. Speaking of Skip Bayless, he got his own allegations against him and just the people over there at Fox or FS1. And so, these media conglomerates and ESPN, they're owned by Disney. And so, with a network like that, at the end of the day, they was willing to cut bait with other, big time talent over there at ESPN. And that seat was getting hot for Shannon Sharpe at ESPN. Now, he's got this $100 million deal out here supposedly for his, media ventures. And I'll say this, as far as the deal is concerned, I mean, the man been hotter than a firecracker. It's well-deserved. Well-deserved success. But one thing that has always been the downfall of man has been the woman. And I'm not saying or making any allegations, just saying who's right and who's wrong in this situation. But you gotta know better. And what I mean by you gotta know better, I mean you're in your mid-50s, man. I mean you still, hanging around, dating, young ladies that are literally in their teens. It's not usually a good idea. Now you can love who you love. I ain't got an issue with that, whether it's, age difference or, say a race difference or whatever that. Love who you love, man. We on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot. We love everybody. So love who you love. But when you're a guy that's getting to that bread and you in your mid-50s and you got children out here that's older than the person that, you hanging and kicking it with, it usually don't end well. And for him, we had the whole situation as well, several months back with, him, basically, having sex and it being, the audio being recorded. And I'm like, man, if you're trying to get that corporate money, yeah, that could be a situation where it's going to hurt your paper, player. And so we'll see what this thing do. It's been, just a lot of mudslinging on both sides of the coin. But I thought it was the right thing to do, man, for Shannon Sharpe to effectively step down from ESPN First Take until, some of this stuff get ironed out and kind of blow over. I also think as well as that it's going to kind of hurt his product that he got on the side hustles. And so, sad to see. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not making, any defense on either side just in regards, and more information to come out on it. But I definitely had to speak just in regards to that. And, man, before we transition, man, and get into, the NBA playoffs and this NFL draft, man, I know you guys have heard the whole situation with Gilbert Arenas' son, man. Elijah Arenas. It appears he was in an automobile accident Thursday and, got a whole situation where, he was put in a coma. Looks like he's gotten out of the coma. So first and foremost, man, well wishes to him, man. He's a young man that McDonald's All-American, making his way into college basketball next season at USC. And so, man, I just hope the best for him. Hope it's not, what we consider any, serious injuries as far as him to be able to continue his basketball career. But that definitely was something that came across the airwaves, man. And so for the youngin' man, well wishes say to him. And as I mentioned, this NFL draft, man, is going to continue. Tonight, we got rounds 2 and 3 jumping off. Also, too, we got the NBA playoffs jumping off as well. So we're going to get into the draft last night. We also, too, going to get into those Wednesday and Thursday games, man. I ain't hit you guys up since Wednesday. So we're just going to kind of recap what we saw across the NBA landscape for the Wednesday and Thursday games. And also, too, the games tonight. Also, too, leading into the weekend. First of all, I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate your ear. We on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot. Welcome back. And last night we had the NFL draft in prime time from Green Bay, Wisconsin. As just the whole atmosphere around the draft, man, is just a whole event in itself. I think the NFL has definitely surpassed the other major sports in the country as far as the draft is concerned. And when they announced that they were going to move the draft from New York and have them at various sites, to me, I was kind of like, I don't know about that. But it has been an event. Last year, man, the draft, we had it in Chicago. It's moved around now to Green Bay. Packer fans was out there in groves. I felt a certain kind of way, man, when they booed my Bears. But, I had a Snoop Dogg moment from the 95 Source Awards, man. We know where we at, man. We know where we at. Y'all already know about that, man. But it was a good little swag, man, last night, man, just seeing the different players get drafted and just the different outfits and, what they was on last night on the get in. It was a good little look. As it won the mystery at number 1, man, is the Tennessee Titans selected Cam Ward out of the University of Miami, the first overall pick. Tennessee, last season, they had their ups and downs with Will Levis. They was able to move on from Van Carthron last season as the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, and they have a new direction now. And for them, I think it was the best move for them. I think Cam Ward, and this is a quarterback class overall this year that wasn't as stout, say, as last year's draft. But there's always some golden nuggets out there, man. Whenever we talking about quarterbacks, I mean, we could go down the whole list. Whether Joe Montana was a 3rd round pick, Russell Wilson 3rd round pick, Tom Brady 6th round pick, Drew Brees 2nd round pick. So, quarterback is not an exact science when it comes down to the NFL draft. But, I thought that the Tennessee Titans made the right move with Cam Ward. Also, we had the nice little movement from the Jacksonville Jaguars as they made that trade with the Cleveland Browns to pick up Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, just a two-way stud in the draft. I think it's going to be a big-time move, man, down there in Duval County, man, having him play both sides of the football. I think Jacksonville definitely needs that. I think Trevor Lawrence definitely needs another weapon. I thought, last year, he got nicked up, of course, but got him in the fold with Travis Hunter. I think it might be a turnaround season for Trevor Lawrence. We'll definitely see what that do. First, before I get into Aston Genty, the Cleveland Browns picked up Mason Graham in that deal, man. They got one of the best defenses in the National Football League on paper, the Cleveland Browns, but they still in a hunt for a quarterback. Think they first up the bat coming up just in a few moments here in the 2nd round. They may go with Shedeur Sanders. That may be a landing spot for Shedeur. He definitely was the talk of the draft last night. As I aforementioned, we had the Raiders go ahead and grab Aston Genty. Definitely the best back, say, in this draft. A lot of people make a lot of comparisons to him and Emmitt Smith. I think they right on P with that. Emmitt Smith, they got a similar running style. I think Genty may have a little bit more breakaway speed than what Emmitt had coming into the league. But I thought that Pete Carroll, they did a good job of just getting a guy that they can hand the ball to, man, and that can get busy from day one to pair up with Geno Smith. So we'll see what they do out there in Las Vegas. Then we had, a lot of people thought that, the Saints was going to go with Shedeur Sanders. They ended up taking Kevin Banks, the offensive tackle, man, from the University of Texas. This was a guy, man, that I made an appearance on the Weekly Dog Sports Betting Podcast. Shout out my man, E. Salim, Mr. Taylor Street, Mako the Mad Russian having me on, man. We did a nice little draft segment. You can catch them boys at $5 2300. Also to catch that segment out as well, man, as we discussed the draft. I thought that was going to be an option for the Bears, but Banks got snatched up by the New Orleans Saints. And then the Bears went ahead and made a move for Colston Loveland, tight end out of the University of Michigan. I thought that pick was going to be Tyler Warren. I think that Salim, he nailed it, knocked it out the park, just with Colston Loveland. He thought that that's what the Bears was going to do, and he was spot on with that. Versatile tight end, more so kind of a receiver / combo type of tight end, man. I think this is going to be big time, playmaking ability coming from that offense of Ben Johnson, new head coach of the Chicago Bears, and Caleb Williams. So we'll see what my Bears do moving forward. But as I mentioned, man, the talk of the draft was Shedeur Sanders and him getting iced out of the 1st round of the NFL draft. I got a feeling, though, Cleveland going to take him, man. First up the bat here in the 2nd round. Cleveland has multiple picks, and I think in the top 4 picks in the 2nd round, Cleveland got 2 of them. My Bears, man, we picking 39 and 41 coming up later on tonight. So we'll see what that thing do. I'm definitely going to be flicking the channels back and forth or flipping the TVs back and forth, man, just to kind of see what's going on between the NBA playoffs and the NFL draft. And speaking of the NBA playoffs, as things is getting a little thick across the NBA, and we got some matchups coming up later on tonight. I can't wait. First and foremost, We got the whole matchup between the Boston Celtics and the Orlando Magic. As Boston is up 2-0 in this series. The biggest talk about this series has really been the injury to Jason Tatum. He's not going to play in this game. As he missed last game as well, as Boston was able to win without him. I think it's going to be the same situation here. Boston just too deep, man. They just too veteran of a club than what Orlando can bring the offer. Orlando, their team that kind of struggle on the offensive end a little bit. And just with a well-oiled machine like the Boston Celtics, I had this series going 5 games coming in, and I just think that this is going to be a situation of where the Celtics, I think the best chance for the Magic would be, say, tonight. But I think the Celtics ultimately, man, going to win in this gentleman's sweep in this series. We'll definitely see what it do and see how long Jason Tatum will be on the men for the Celtics. Then we had the Indiana Pacers, man, what I call one of them block series where we don't like your block, you don't like our block, and don't come on our block. As this series transitions down to Milwaukee, as the Indiana Pacers is up 2-0 in this series. And I seen the frustration in Giannis' face, man, when they dropped game number 2. But I think this series, to me, it's a 7-game series. I think that obviously if the Pacers, they win this game tonight, this series is over. But I do think that the Bucks will be able to hold serve at the crib. And I think this thing is definitely going to get thick. But these two teams don't like each other. There's going to be some more scuffles just in this series overall. Giannis, like I said, man, just a walking bucket. They still don't got nobody to stop Giannis. But I think that Dame Lillard may have a big-time game in this game, man, as he finally kind of getting back on the men from having those blood clots. So we'll see what it do, man, in that series. And then also, too, we got the Los Angeles Lakers taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves as this series switches up to Minnesota as it's tied 1 game apiece in this series. I'm not going to front, man. I like the energy that the Lakers brought in game number 2. I mean, they came out, kind of on one, man, from an energy standpoint. And I just think that that's what they're going to need if they're going to be able to get past Minnesota. LeBron James, he can't wait, a quarter just to kind of get the gear started for them. They got to come out on it. I think this series is still going to be, one of them series. I actually predicted the Lakers to win this series in 6 games. I don't know. This thing probably goes 7. And, I still think the Lakers may still get out of this series. But you really never know, man, with the Minnesota Timberwolves, man, with Ant-Man and Nas Reed and just, Mike Conley being a super OG. I think they're more like streamlined type team is from a standpoint of they got bigs, Julius Randle. They're able to kind of play inside out if they need be. The Lakers is really kind of one-dimensional, especially on the defensive end. They just don't have no guys defensively in their front court that's able to stop nobody. If they decide they want to get to the basket, I think that's going to be on Julius Randle in this series for Minnesota if they're going to try to move on in this one. So I can't wait for that tilt later on tonight. And yeah, man, this sport landscape is getting real thick. And like I said, springtime is one of the most exciting times, man, just across the whole sport landscape. We got baseball jumping off, now they in the first month or so of, say, their season, which they start a little earlier nowadays than back in the day, man, but they've getting those gears kicked in, man, MLB. Also, we got the NBA playoffs, obviously, as I just aforementioned, as well as the NFL draft. It's just new hope across the National Football League for all 32 teams. Got the draft nicks out there, man. It's a good little swag up there in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So we'll definitely see what it do. Also, coming up, I got a special treat for you coming up. Speaking on the NBA tip, I got my NBA Big 5, another Big 5, man. I got my Big 5 playoff runs of all time. Well, not quite all time. Going back the last, say, 40 years since I, got into the NBA universe. Just the top Big 5 version of the nicest and most outstanding playoff runs in the NBA playoffs. So definitely check that out coming up. First of all, I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate your ear. We on Fire Sports Podcast, the spot. Yeah, before we get out of here, man, I gotta hit you guys with another installment of my NBA Big Five. This is my NBA Big Five playoff edition. These are my Big Five playoff runs over the last, say, 40 years or so in the NBA, since I've been, sitting back soaking up the NBA and all what jumps off during the playoffs. And before I get into that, first and foremost, man, definitely you can check your boy out on YouTube at We On Fire Sports. Definitely got it cracking over there, as well as on Twitter at We On Fire Sports as well. Also, too, you can catch the podcast wherever podcasts be listened to. We all over the place, so I appreciate you guys checking me out. But, I remember being a young lad, man, just with my pops and just, my uncles and his guys, man, sitting down on the floor model television, man, eating my little snacks, man. And the first NBA Finals that I can remember was the 1984 NBA Finals between the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers. It was the first time that Larry Bird and Magic Johnson appeared in the NBA Finals together. And, just soaking up game, man, from the OGs, man, I knew it was a big-time event. I never forget, man, just watching the fans storm the court, man, in the Boston Garden when Boston was able to knock off the Los Angeles Lakers in 1984. That was my entry into the NBA, man. That was a classic series, just to say the least. They had a story rivalry over the 1980s between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, the Celtics and the Lakers. Just straight classic. If you're a youngin', man, you definitely got to check out the matchups on YouTube, man. It's just epic. Just push the NBA forward into what we know now in the NBA universe. But this Big Five list, if you're OG, man, you know how I get down with my Big Fives, man. This was one of the toughest Big Five playoff runs, this list, man, that I've been able to compile. And first and foremost, man, I'm going to just go with what I call the honorable mentions, man. Just one of the first teams that come to mind, man, is the Houston Rockets in 1995, man. This is a team that won the NBA championship in 1994. Hakeem Olajuwon, Kenny the Jet Smith. He was able to knock off the New York Knicks in Game 7 in 94, man. Most people really remember that series about the whole O.J. Simpson chase. Riding the Bronco with AC, man. The NBA Finals was kind of preempted just to show that chase down the highway in California. Never forget that. But in 95, man, the Houston Rockets, man, they were 6th seed. They didn't have home court advantage in no series in that playoffs. And this team, man, never forget Rudy T, man, just never underestimate the heart of a champion. As the Houston Rockets was able to get from a 6th seed, get all the way through to the NBA Finals, matching up with Penny and Shaquille O'Neal in the NBA Finals and sweeping the Orlando Magic. So I definitely got to send some kudos, man, say to them. Also, for my super OGs out there, man, can't forget about the 1983 Philadelphia 76ers, man, that 4-4-4. Shout out to the late, great Moses Malone. Got a chance, man, to meet Moses Malone, man, before his untimely death. Cool guy, man, and, that run, Dr. J was his first NBA championship, right a little bit before I got into the NBA fully, man, but, definitely that was a nice little move, and the 76ers haven't won an NBA championship since that time frame. Also, too, can't forget about the 2001 Lakers, man, Kobe and Shaq. Just a full bloom, man. This team ran through the playoffs, man, only with one defeat. They was able to knock off the Philadelphia 76ers and Allen Iverson. I know a lot of y'all, basketball heads, man, remember the step over Tyronn Lue, man, in Game 1. AI wasn't going, but that Philadelphia 76ers team was undermatched, man. And so, the Lakers, they had a nice little run. So I've seen some great runs across the NBA playoffs, man, over my years of just watching and covering the NBA. But we're going to get right into this Big Five, man, because this was a hard Big Five, man. And coming in at number 5, man, this was a classic series, man, just to say the least. These teams, they locked horns in the NBA Finals 3 different times. It's definitely one of the most storied rivalries in this era of the NBA, and that's the Cleveland Cavaliers winning the NBA championship that year, going 16-5 in the playoffs. The first team in NBA history in the NBA Finals to come back from down 3-1. We all remember the big-time block from LeBron James, man, and him just getting emotional, man, and yelling out Cleveland at the end. Now, I've had my, trials and tribulations with LeBron James, man, but I definitely got to tip my cap. It was a big-time win, man, for the Cleveland Cavaliers, their first NBA championship. As we all know, man, they was able to knock off The Golden State Warriors, a team that won 73 games. You know, a lot of people thought they got that stimulus package with Draymond Green, just being Draymond Green, man, getting suspended for a game in that series. But definitely, man, I got to send my kudos. And can't forget about Kyrie Irving. You know, Kyrie Irving, in my opinion, he should have won the NBA Finals MVP. In that finals, man, just the epic, you know, Game 5, I remember him dropping that 40-piece, keeping the Cavaliers alive. And then in Game 7, you know, hitting that big 3-ball, man, over Stephen Curry for them to win their first NBA championship in franchise history. So, you know, I got the Cleveland Cavaliers, man, coming in at number 5. At number 4, man, we're going to travel back to the 80s, man. And this team was a team that, to me, this was the best installment of the Showtime Los Angeles Lakers, man. Magic Johnson, James Worthy, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you know, Byron Scott, you know, Pat Riley on the sideline, man, with the Armani suits and the slick back hair. And this team, man, this was just the epitome of just fast break basketball. I mean, this is a team that would just run you straight out the building. You know, I've had a lot of conversations, man, just doing kind of comparisons over the years and what this 87 Lakers team would do in today's basketball, man. This team just was epic. And, you know, they had, you know, got that whole situation in 86 against the Houston Rockets in the Western Conference Finals. A lot of people thought that they was going to match up with the with the Boston Celtics in the 86 NBA Finals, but that big time tip in, man, by Ralph Sampson, I can never forget. You know, Michael Cooper under the basket in disbelief. I just remember as a shorty just watching it, I couldn't believe, man, that the Rockets knocked off the Lakers. They came back in 87 with that get back, got a chance to match up against the Boston Celtics in the 87 NBA Finals. That was an epic finals, man. And Magic Johnson, you know, hitting that big time shot in Game 5 of the NBA Finals, man. Little baby sky hook over Kevin McHale. Just one of those epic moments for Magic Johnson and Los Angeles Lakers as that team went 15-3 through the NBA playoffs, man. And so, you know, tip my cap to the 87 Lakers, man. I got them coming in at number 4. And then we gonna keep it in the 1980s, man. And this is a team that, you know, being, you know, a longtime Bulls fan, man, couldn't stand this team, man. Just couldn't stand nothing about this team, man. And you guys already know, man, if you know your basketball, man, I'm talking about the bad boy Detroit Pistons. 1989 Pistons, man, it's their first NBA championship, you know, in Detroit for them. This team went 15-2 over the playoffs. And what makes this team special to me, man, and I got to tip my cap to them reluctantly, they was able to beat Jordan, Bird, and Magic on the way to an NBA championship, man. They slayed them all. Like I said, man, going 15-2, you know, doing their run, doing the NBA playoffs. And, you know, Isaiah Thomas, man, just being just that wizard with the basketball. Shout out to Joe Dumars, man, NBA Finals MVP. And the Detroit Pistons, man, they did it their way, man, like Frank Sinatra. You know, just taking out just 3 big-time Hall of Famers on their way to their first NBA championship in Detroit. So I got the Detroit Pistons, man, coming in at number 3. And at number 2, man, this is a team that, boy, we waited years, man. When I say we, I'm talking about my 1991 Chicago Bulls, man. It just was an epic situation. You know, I shed a lot of tears, man, during the later part of the 80s, man, losing to the Boston Celtics in the playoffs and Jordan putting up 63 in the Garden, losing to the Detroit Pistons in 3 consecutive seasons. The city just being frustrated, man. We moving on from Doug Collins as head coach, going over to Phil Jackson, who was basically unknown as a coach at the time, man. And this team, man, went on 15-2. Through the playoff run, man, was able to get back against the Detroit Pistons, sweeping them in the Eastern Conference Finals. Then we had the dream matchup with the Los Angeles Lakers in the 91 Finals, man, as the Bulls was able to knock off the Lakers 4-1. And, man, this was probably my biggest moment as a sports fan. Just going to keep it all the way real with you guys, man. Just to see just all the blood, sweat, and tears over the years, man, and just remember just watching that game, man, and then after the game, just going out, man, and everybody in Chicago, man, from the south side to the west side to the north side to the east side, man, people blowing horns, celebrating in the streets, you know, people kicking off the looting, man, and just seeing the tears flowing for Michael Jordan, man, just kind of even get emotional just thinking about it, man. But it was the Bulls' first NBA championship. As we all know, man, they went on to win 6 NBA titles, man, in the 1990s. And I got my Chicago Bulls, man, coming in at number 2. And at number one, man, this is a team that, when this team got put together, everybody knew, man, it was just a coordination. Everybody knew, man, they was the best team in basketball, over the summer. Big time free agent move, one of the biggest free agent moves, probably the biggest one in NBA history, with the Golden State Warriors 2017 version, man, bringing in Kevin Durant. And just what they was able to do in that playoff run, man, going 16-1, got that, get back against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA Finals. They also, too, knocked off an underrated Spurs team, man. The Spurs team in the Western Conference Finals that had won 60 games. I remember Kawhi Leonard getting injured in that series, after, I believe, the first 2 games of that series. But this Warriors team, man, everybody knew, man, they was just on one that season. It's the best iteration. I mean, you got, Steph Curry, man. You got, obviously, just the situation with Kevin Durant, them guys being arguably probably 2 of the best 3 basketball players in the world at that time on the same team. Kevin Durant brought home the MVP award in that season. And just this team, man, it was just blowout city. You already knew, man, it really was a coordination with the Warriors that year. Played some very impressive basketball. Shout out to Steve Kerr and just what they was able to do, say, that year. And I'm going to leave you guys with this. Man. And, this list is really about the playoff runs. This is not really what I consider like a microcosm of the 5 best NBA teams of all time that I've seen. I may hit y'all guys with a special big 5. Probably, maybe towards NBA Finals time, man, I'll save that, man. But those are the big 5 playoff runs, man. Just straight dominance through the NBA playoffs, taking on worthy opponents, knocking off Hall of Famers on their way to glory, winning an NBA championship. And so, first and foremost, man, I appreciate, man, you guys checking me out on We on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot. Definitely, if it's your first time listening, man, definitely follow through, man. We coming with episodes pretty much twice a week, man, on the regular. Sometimes we hit you with the 3-piece, just like this week we just jumped off. And, man, so I appreciate the love and the feedback. We had the NFL draft jumping off, just the first round of the NBA draft in prime time. And later on tonight, we'll have, round 2 and so forth for the NFL draft. Also, too, the NBA playoffs is definitely on fire. So I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate your ear. We on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot.